On today's show, we have David Berger on talking about the Super Bowl. Yes, David Berger's talking about the Super Bowl. I hope you guys enjoy this fun conversation that I have with David. Welcome back to the Fan Show. This is our middle of the week show, and it is Super Bowl week. I'm Alex Berger, and just seeing stuff on social media I think is pretty interesting for the different media members that are covering the Super Bowl. Because if you're not aware, and it's kind of, when I say this, it might be a duh, yeah. But the Super Bowl is actually up in Minnesota, and right now it's -4 degrees. Snow and ice is just everywhere up there. It is miserable conditions, but hey, that's what happens when you host a Super Bowl up in Minnesota, because it's typical weather up there right now. And seeing some stuff on social media by some of the media members that are covering the Super Bowl, they make it sound like they've been exiled to Siberia to cover that game. But hey, you're covering the Super Bowl, and I'm definitely not up there, so you're doing something right with your career, or you made it to some sort of plateau if you can cover the Super Bowl. But hey, I just want to talk right now to the ticket holders who go to Super Bowls every year. And I'm going to say this because the Super Bowl is going to be here in Atlanta next year. Right now, it is mild conditions. Yeah, it's cold outside, but it is mild. So if you're looking forward to next year's Super Bowl, the weather is just going to be right, especially for early February. Just the month of February in general here in the city is pretty decent weather. You don't usually get snow, but hey, who knows the way this winter's going? I think personally it's probably going to snow one more time, and then we're done with it till next winter. But yeah, I'm not trying to start the show talking about media members complaining that they have to be in the cold covering the Super Bowl, or the weather that's going on, or trying to promote the Super Bowl when it comes here. But I do want to start off this particular topic that I'm about to get into in our fan advice portion of the show. And if you're not aware what fan advice is here on the Fan Show, it's where here at Fans Favorite Fan we can give advice to a certain fan base. And right now, I want to reach out to the Atlanta Braves fans. Someone once said that Twitter is probably the best and worst thing that has happened in the past couple of years. And I agree with that statement. And I think recently we've seen the worst of Twitter. Because yeah, it's great that when news gets out that everyone can know about it instantaneously. But at the same time, there is some serious social media trolling that goes on Twitter. If you don't have a Twitter account, amen. But if you do, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I felt like this weekend we definitely saw the worst of Twitter here in the city of Atlanta. So what happened this past weekend, and this, like I said, this goes out to Atlanta Braves fans. the Braves organization put on this really cool thing that they had, and especially since they have the new stadium there at SunTrust Park, and everything's completed now. There's pretty much nothing under construction, so I would say the battery's probably at 80 to 90% complete. So you have this whole area that you can use that has restaurants and condos and shops, and that's open throughout the week. But what the Atlanta Braves did is they wanted to do their fanfare thing, and they called it Chop Fest. And through the whole weekend, because it started on Saturday and ended on Sunday, there was just a ton of different things you can do as fans. That was really cool. I personally was there with my best friend Brandon, and even though it was raining, they opened up the stadium so you could just go into the stadium, get out of the rain, and I mean that's probably the funnest time you're ever going to have at SunTrust Park when it rains. That you have that option to go into the stadium, and they had the concession stands open, which I thought was really cool. But outside of that, I feel like a real ugly part that happened during this fanfare, during this Chop Fest, was they introduced the Braves' new mascot, and I didn't know the Braves were up for a new mascot, but apparently they were, and they introduced it to the kids, and it was cool showing, and it was cool what they did. It was Disney-esque type of thing where you had a mad scientist creating a mascot, and I thought the whole thing was pretty humorous. If you haven't seen it, check it out on Braves Twitter. It's kind of cool what they did, and I think if you're a parent, you would appreciate it. And it was honestly probably one of those things where you can let the kids do kid things, and you can just take a break and do adulting or whatever you choose to do. If you're a parent, I'm not a parent, so I'm not here to judge, but I'm assuming that was one of the things of Chop Fest. If you had a kid, he was getting a little antsy. Well, here's something he can pay attention to for 10-15 minutes. Don, you know what I'm talking about. So what ends up happening is they revealed this mascot, and this guy isn't the most handsome mascot you ever seen. He isn't the most cute looking mascot you ever seen, but in my opinion, he was a typical baseball mascot. And what I mean by that is all baseball mascots look goofy. Even the more prestigious baseball organizations out there, like the Red Sox. The Wally guy, I mean, he looks kind of goofy. Definitely definitely in Philadelphia. That guy looks goofy. So it shouldn't be a surprise if you follow baseball and you've seen these mascots before. They all look kind of goofy. In the Braves, are pretty much the same way. But on social media, people gave a lot of grief and a lot of they I wouldn't call it hate, but it was kind of like they criticized, and they made it felt like it wasn't anything special. They made it felt like I don't know. It was kind of all this negativity that happens when you see a team like the Atlanta Falcons or an Atlanta team go to a championship and just choke. A lot of negativity went into a mascot, and this is something fun for the kids, and this is something that I feel like social media, especially the Twitter universe, just ruined. I mean, this is a goofy thing for the kids. I mean, the guy kind of reminds me of my stuffed teddy bear, and it's kind of a little cute in that way, but I felt like we just took it a little too far. Where have we come as a society that we have the energy and we need to get our opinion out there? about a baseball mascot? Have we come this far? Is that something that we care about in 2018? A baseball mascot. I mean, aren't there other things that we can put our passion towards or voice our opinions about that are going on in the world instead of just a baseball mascot? That just doesn't really that just doesn't really make sense. Yeah, I get that he's a little bit awkward looking. He's probably not the best like Disney caricature that the Braves organization could probably come up with, but still, I think it's just a little too far. And I think as Braves fans, um, hey, this is who we got, and it's meant for the kids. He's meant to be goofy. I think he's meant to be a little bit awkward looking, but still, like let's just get behind this guy and have fun with him when we go to Braves games and see this dude. I don't think mascots are supposed to be in beauty contests. Obviously, the mascot that sticks out to me that's probably the best polished is um, Oregon's mascot, and then the reason why he's the most polished of the mascots is because, well, Disney had something to do with that. So I wouldn't, I honestly, like, I don't see, and I think the weird thing about it is, like, I don't see a lot of um, colleges hating on their mascot. It's not like Georgia fans like, oh, Harry Dog's so ugly. I mean, personally, I don't really think Harry Dog's ugly. I think Harry Dog's Harry Dog. Like, and Albie the Tiger, yeah, he does some dumb things, and I don't necessarily get frustrated with, but it's kind of like he's kind of annoying, but still, he's Albie. Like, I'm not really gonna hate on that. I'm not really gonna spend 200 and something characters trying to talk about how much I don't like him. But yeah, I just say for the adults out there, I kind of get what you're coming from, but still, like shame on you. You shouldn't you shouldn't be attacking a mascot on Twitter just because you don't like it. And I think the sad part about all this too was you either had people that didn't like the mascot or you had people defending the mascot for defending defending Blooper, even though they really didn't approve of them, but they thought it was ridiculous people were tweeting about them. So, Atlanta Braves fans, let's just grow up. Let's just grow up a little bit. There are other pictures on Twitter that I saw that I thought were pretty humorous, and it's kind of like look where we come from because they showed the mascot I think back in the late '70s, early '80s, and it was just like a patch of grass. It was a patch of grass that was wearing a Braves hat, and he said Braves in red. Like, so we've come a long way from a patch of grass to what we have now with Blooper. So let's just give Blooper a season, and hey, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. The kids don't like him. Hey, the kids don't like him. I guess you can kind of reinvent the wheel, because baseball mascots aren't really that that known. I guess Mr. Met's probably the most famous of them, and the last Braves mascot we had, I can't remember his name, and I feel like it's not really relevant to put his name out, but he looked like an exact copy of what Mr. Met looked like. So I feel like it's good that the Braves are going towards the original route, and the way I found out about this, because it was pretty funny, because they had this kind of interview current players like that were Freddie Freeman, Dansby Swanson, Ender Inciarte, and they had a panel there of just current players on the current team, and you had fans asking questions to them in an open forum type setting, kind of like an open town hall type setting type thing, and the reason and sitting in that, actually, a fan asked, well, what do you guys think of the new mascot? And majority of the players that were on that panel was like, I don't know really what you're talking about. But apparently Twitter found out what was going on real quick. But let's just grow up on our Twitter accounts. Now we're going to bring on David Berger, and I just want to FYI this, just put this out here. David has a man crush on Tom Brady. I'm just giving David a hard time, but yeah, we're gonna talk about some Tom Brady. And if you don't like Tom Brady, just hold your ears, or skip ahead till we talk about the Eagles. But without further ado, David Berger.
Okay. Well, I'll just pause for a second, and then we can get started. All right. Joining me today on the Fan Show, you know him with his college football coverage, and is soon going to be writing for Fan's Favorite Fan. We got the former voice of the Hornets, Mr. David Berger. David, how are you doing today, man?
Pretty good. Been kind of a long day, but it's gearing closer towards Super Bowl Sunday, so the anticipation keeps growing each and every day. But I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm good. You mentioned Super Bowl Sunday. That is the big elephant in the room. I said at the beginning of the show, the way the media is complaining on social media, it seems like they've been exiled to Siberia. The way the temperatures, I think it was like -4 on Monday, and just a lot of snow, a lot of ice up there. What's some of the coverage that you've seen about the Super Bowl so far, and especially the media days this past couple of years? What have you liked and what have you disliked so far?
Well, I guess the big thing is nowadays they make it a very big spectacle for media day. A couple of years ago, they started to make it more fan-friendly in terms of letting people go to it, and also televising it either on NFL Network or at least ESPN picking up a lot of different bits and segments from the different players that get interviewed. But at the same time, NFL Network's, I think, done a great job, at least this year and last year, of covering it and introducing it as what we call opening night for the Super Bowl on Monday. The Monday before the game. Both teams by then are in town, wherever it is. So they have media night. They make both teams available an hour apiece, and you get to talk to coaches and players, and you get to see a lot of kind of like the behind-the-scenes stuff with what NFL Network puts on. So they've done a great job of it. This year is no exception to that. Minnesota hosting it again. It's a cold weather city. So, it's good that Minnesota plays indoors, or else it would probably be about -4, like you said, on kickoff. But everybody's talking about the weather, but, it's an indoor stadium. And a lot of the, media buzz going around, it's kind of two different themes with each team. The first theme for the Eagles is the underdog card. They're an underdog going into this game. They're still a number 1 seed, though they finished 13-3, won the NFC. So, and, was number 1 seed in the playoffs again. So, but they're still third straight playoff game that they're the underdog going into it. The other theme for New England is, again, Brady drama, especially with a local radio host in Boston calling his daughter something pretty vulgar online after the Facebook documentary came out, Tom versus Time. So you have that aspect from New England. Also with New England, two of their big coaches, Matt Patricia, defensive coordinator, and Josh McDaniels, offensive coordinator, most likely leaving after this season for NFL jobs. So, you got a lot of side stories with Media Day, but those are probably the big ones, the underdogs for Philadelphia, and then the coaching changes after the season, most likely for New England, along with, again, a little bit more Brady drama thrown in there from the Boston media specifically.
Right. David, how would you sell the Super Bowl? Because right now, outside of the fan bases for these two teams, no one's really buying stock, and it seems like no one really cares because I think the Patriots are in it, because the Patriots have a dynasty right now in the NFL, and there's not really a lot of people that just like the Eagles. So this is kind of a sticky one to get into. Obviously, last year you had kind of the same scenario, but a lot of people thought Atlanta could pull it off, but it just doesn't seem like both of these teams intrigue people to want to watch this game on Sunday outside of these fan bases.
I'm about to say there's a lot of fans that I will say hate both of these fan bases. The Giants and the Cowboys and the Redskins all hate the Eagles. And, the Giants don't necessarily hate the Patriots as much, but, as much of a team that you don't play regularly, they could hate them. But, Giants and the Patriots play every preseason. So there's that type of rivalry there. The Cowboys, they're quote-unquote America's team, but, they haven't showed up in the past 20 years for the playoffs. So, New England's kind of taken that over to some regard. So the Cowboys may have animosity with the Patriots in that aspect, as well as being divisional rivals with the Eagles. The Redskins hate the Eagles, so Redskins fans are probably going to pull for the Patriots. And then you look at, just some other random teams. Pittsburgh doesn't like New England, so they may pull for the Eagles. But again, they're in-state rivals, kind of. Obviously the Falcons don't like the Patriots just because of last year. But at the same time, I think...
And this year.
Well, the Super Bowl is the Super Bowl.
Right,
and
right.
It's going to draw a ton of people. People are going to watch it. And, to some degree, I kind of disagree with you because you have two number one seeds going at it. You have the best team from the AFC that finished the regular season and the best team from the NFC that finished the regular season. Both teams, they did really well against the team in the playoffs. They got the win. And then they also kind of struggled against the team in the playoffs and got the win. Philadelphia struggled against Atlanta in the divisional round and won. But they also then blew out in the conference championship Minnesota. So, Philadelphia on that aspect struggled in the division, blew out their conference opponent in the conference championship game. New England, on the other hand, they didn't struggle at all. They blew out Tennessee in the divisional round and struggled against Jacksonville in the conference championship. So both these teams are pretty similar. They're going to add up pretty similar. Obviously, the big glaring difference is their quarterback, Nick Foles and Tom Brady. But even if the Eagles had Carson Wentz, it would still be a very good quarterback matchup. I mean, overall, I think this is going to be a very balanced Super Bowl. I think it kind of mirrors a lot of last year. The Falcons and the Patriots, the only big difference last year was the defense. Both teams are really good on offense, especially with the Falcons being the best. And this year, both offenses are pretty decent, have done well, put up points against different teams. They've put up a lot of points in certain games, and they've, struggled in certain games. They have the same record. They're 13-3. And then their defenses are both pretty stout. Now, granted, Philadelphia's defense has been better, it hasn't really struggled as much throughout the season as New England. And New England, struggled a lot in the beginning in the first 4 weeks, but then really turned it around after week 4. About week 5 and beyond, New England did pretty well, minus the debacle down in Miami, but that was more offensive issues. So, both teams are pretty similar. So I think this will be a very good matchup for the Super Bowl. I don't see it necessarily being a blowout either way. I think it'll be pretty close. I mean, I could see, the Eagles winning, and I can argue the Eagles winning. I can argue the Patriots winning. I could argue the Eagles possibly winning by 10 and the Patriots possibly winning by 10. I don't think it'll be a blowout. I don't think the team will win. Either team will win by, more than that amount, more than that amount, more than 10. But at the same time, both teams find balance on offense and on defense and on special teams. Both teams do everything really well. So again, it's the Super Bowl. I mean, it's the greatest game of the year. It's the biggest sporting event in America, for the whole year. And, it's the culmination of a great NFL regular season and a great playoff run for both teams. And so it'll be a great matchup on Sunday at 6:30 in Minnesota. I mean, I'm really looking forward to it. Obviously, and I guess I got to go on record and say, yes, I am a Patriots fan. So I got a little bit of more stake than most fans in the game, especially living here in the South. But if you look at it, I mean, even as non-biased as I can be, Alex, I will say, this Super Bowl is going to be a pretty good matchup, for both teams. Philadelphia hasn't been since they played New England years ago. So, for this city, it's huge. And for, New England, a lot of people say, oh, well, this is old hat. You guys have been here before. But the way Brady and Belichick prepare is it's, new game, new team. We got to prepare for it completely different. We can't treat this just like, we've been here, done that. So, for New England, they're going to prepare like it's, like this is their first time. And the Eagles, they're going to be prepared to play this game as well. So Super Bowl is the Super Bowl, no matter how way you slice it. So I'm ready for it, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, this matchup kind of reminds me of the last time the Eagles and the Patriots played in the Super Bowl back in 2005, and that game was pretty close and went down to the wire. But it seemed like the Patriots were just more of a solid team and could keep it together. Which on the other side, it seemed like the Eagles couldn't keep it together because of someone named Terrell Owens, but.
They got the turnover trouble. So.
Yeah, too. Yep. So, just with the Eagles, for those people that haven't really followed the NFL too much, just kind of break them down because they had Carson Wentz that led them through majority of the season. That he goes down with the injury, then Nick Foles just takes his place and kind of does what Nick Foles does. When he's in the Eagles franchise.
Yeah, the quarterback issue, just been, it was really again, like you said, towards the end of the season, they played out in L.A., and Carson Wentz tore his ACL out for the year. And a lot of Eagles fans were saying at the time, oh, great, here we go again. We're going to falter again, and this is just, the curse of Philadelphia. But no, Nick Foles has done a great job stepping in at quarterback and leading. I mean, he does have some experience. Obviously not like Carson Wentz had this season and not like Tom Brady does, who he's going up against in the Super Bowl. But at the same time, excuse me about that. Philadelphia has a great
okay.
Philadelphia, they picked up J.J. this year. Got basically, it's kind of like a steal from Miami. And so he brought a lot of balance to the running game. You also have LeGarrette Blount, who played on the Patriots last year as a running back. J.J. he's all speed and can get outside. LeGarrette Blount, you just give it to him up the middle, and he can plow it, for 8 or 9 yards and just drag defenders with him. And then you got Corey Clement, who's kind of like the scat back that can come out of the backfield. He's done a lot of good work in the passing game for them. It's kind of like a third option. And then they have multiple options at wide receiver, Alshon Jeffrey being one of the most notable. You also have Zach Ertz, a very good tight end, kind of comparable to Gronk in terms of statistics. Both have 8 touchdowns, Gronk and Zach Ertz this year. And, you're complemented also with Trey Burton, product out of Florida, who's done a really good job. And then Riley Cooper as well. So,
right.
Philadelphia is pretty balanced overall. Philadelphia has done a great job of getting the ball and being smart, or getting the ball to the right people, being smart with those decisions. And then on defense, again, they have a top 5 defense in the league. Going into last week's 2 weeks ago, the conference championship game against Minnesota, that was going to be, everybody thought it was going to be a battle of defenses. Minnesota and Philadelphia having 2 top 5 defenses. So Philadelphia is very balanced overall. Also on the defensive line, they got Chris Long, who played for the Patriots last year. Chris Long was a defensive lineman who did a lot of good work for the Patriots. So, you got LeGarrette Blount, Chris Long going up against their former team in the Super Bowl. So for them, they've been there. But, again, for a lot of these Philadelphia Eagles, they haven't been there. But at the same time, they have a veteran defense. Their strength on defense is going to be their defensive line and their secondary, especially with Chris Long and Fletcher Cox on the defensive line and then Malcolm Jenkins in that secondary. So Philadelphia, again, will pose a lot of problems for New England. The defense is going to be the biggest part. If you can stop Tom Brady and somehow make Tom Brady take away his receivers and make him work in that pocket, at times it's worked it's worked bad for the Patriots this season, where if you make Tom Brady have to stand in the pocket and throw and find and look, to his third and fourth receivers, that's when problems happen because the offensive line is broken down at times. And Philadelphia has the ability to do that. So if the secondary can hold up and stop, people like Amendola, Gronk, cover somebody out of the backfield, whether it's Deion Lewis or James White, if they can stop Chris Hogan, if they can cover those receivers and cover those options for Brady, the defense should be able to get to Tom Brady. And that's when New England struggles. If Tom Brady has time to throw, he'll get into a rhythm, and we've seen it for 17, almost 18 years now. He's torn defenses apart. So
yeah, that's not
Eagles,
an easy task trying to cover those receivers either.
If the Eagles want to win, they got to start with, taking away Brady's options and then pressuring Tom Brady. So if you can to stop New England, it all starts with stopping Brady's options and then making Brady spend a long time in the pocket trying to find open receivers and then collapsing that pocket. Brady is, almost 60-70% completion rate when he's taking 3 seconds or less to throw the ball from the snap. If he's taking at least 4 to 5 seconds to throw, it's not going to be a good day for New England. So that's basically where the Eagles can win. Then the Eagles have to be consistent on offense. They have to be consistent in the running game. It all starts with that running game on offense. If they can get Jay Ajayi going, and if they can get Garrett Blount, on third down work if they need to, and if they can get the ball to Corey Clement out of the backfield, that'll open up the receivers to give Nick Foles time. Now, if Nick Foles struggles in this game, if New England stops the run on Philadelphia and Nick Foles struggles in the passing game, it's going to be a long night for the Eagles. But at the end of the day, if you can stop Brady, be consistent, and not necessarily force things on offense for the Eagles, they can have a good night on Super Bowl Sunday.
Now, the way the NFC is gone, do you feel like the Eagles organization, because they got a lot of young talent and a lot of veterans, like you point out, do you think that they can have the possibility to get back here next year?
Well, that's a good question. The way they played throughout the majority of the season, I would say yes. The way Carson Wentz just played out of his skull for most of the year until he got hurt, I would say yes, because even when Carson Wentz got hurt, the Eagles still basically had the NFC number 1 overall seed wrapped up. They only had about 2 or 3 more games when he got hurt at the end of the season. So with that said, I was like, Philadelphia's got the pieces in place. And if Wentz stays healthy, and I could totally see them, playing in this game again within the next couple of years. Because, again, they have all the pieces there. And I'm telling you, if Wentz stays healthy, they can totally make another run at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and it seems like they don't have Chip Kelly there anymore, so he's not going to sell the whole team in free agency. But that is probably a big concern if you're an Eagles fan. How is your team going to do in free agency after the Super Bowl?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, who they're signing or who they're trying to pick up or who leaves. And I'll tell you this, some people may retire. So, yeah, I mean, the offseason always brings about change. But at the same time, Philadelphia's got some pretty key pieces in place to keep a lot of the core people there and to keep a lot of those core people there for a while. So Philadelphia's going to be a team to handle in the NFC for a couple of years from now on.
Yeah, if you know the NFL, you definitely know the New England Patriots. So, David, just tell me about some players on the Patriots team that aren't household names like Tom Brady, like Gronkowski. Who are some guys that are kind of the quote-unquote unsung heroes of that team that helped them get back to this point to win another championship?
Yeah, and it's interesting you brought up without saying Brady and Gronk, but I'll say this. With Brady and Gronk, Brady is arguably the greatest quarterback of all time, and Gronk is arguably and statistically the greatest tight end of all time. So it's almost kind of like having, Jordan and LeBron on the same team at the same time, then being coached by arguably the greatest coach of all time. So it's like Jordan and LeBron being coached by Red Auerbach. But then who else plays there? Who else do you need? Well, it's interesting. Julian Edelman tore his ACL in a preseason game and has been out the whole year. Normally that would be your second, other than Gronk, another weapon for Brady, that'd be your second household name. But on offense, a player that's really come on late is Dion Lewis, their running back. Dion Lewis has done a very good job of staying consistent in the game plan. And, he may get taken down for a loss or only get 1 or 2 yards, on certain drives early on. But normally he keeps, just keep doing it, keep pounding inside and then working his way outside. And Dion Lewis, late in games in the second half, has done a lot of good work in the running game. He arguably is the player that closed out the AFC Championship against Jacksonville 2 weeks ago in getting a 9-yard run on 3rd and 9, or getting actually a 10 or 11-yard run on 3rd and 9 that sealed the deal.
Dang,
So John Lewis is one.
That's clutch.
And then another one in the passing game is going to be Danny Amendola. When Julian Edelman went out, a lot of people said, who's going to step up? Well, we got Chris Hogan, Danny Amendola, and obviously Gronk. But as a wide receiver, Danny Amendola is a very, very much unsung hero on New England. He got the only 2 passing touchdowns that Brady threw in the AFC Championship game, both in the back of the end zone. Amendola is nicknamed up in New England Danny Playoff Amendola. His playoff stats are incredible. I mean, he's got touchdowns. He had a touchdown against Seattle in the Super Bowl. He had a touchdown in the 2-point conversion in the Super Bowl last year. He had 2 touchdowns in the AFC Championship game against Jacksonville. So Danny Amendola is the go-to target outside of Gronk, or Brady's go-to target other than Gronk. And then on defense, obviously the addition of James Harrison has helped out a lot at linebacker for the Patriots this year. It's just in the front with their 3-4 front that they run. But at the same time, New England hasn't been known for their linebackers for the past couple of years. So adding James Harrison has been great. And with Dante Hightower, he was got out early in the season with an abdominal tear in one of his pectoral muscles. So he's been out for most of the season. So Kyle Van Noy has had to play Dante Hightower's position and has done a great job. But adding James Harrison really helps out Kyle Van Noy as they'll split edges on being the 2 outside linebackers. But a rookie that's really stepped up is Dietrich Wise on the defensive line out of Arkansas. Very, very good talent. He's kind of quiet, but he'll get a sack every once in a while that'll be a drive changer. And Dietrich Wise is very fast and powerful for how young he is as a rookie. And then New England, in my opinion, basically on defense holds their hat with their secondary. People like Malcolm Butler, who got the interception against Russell Wilson in Super Bowl 49 as a rookie and was known for that, and lives in New England lore because of it. But you're also backed up by a team captain, Devin McCourty. Devin McCourty is a twin brother, plays in the NFL as well, Jason McCourty. But he's a veteran free safety, does a lot of good things, and he organizes the defensive backs back there. And then another guy you may have heard of recently, Eric Rowe. Eric Rowe has been touted by defensive coordinator Matt Patricia as one of the best defenders recently for the Patriots that's come on in the past 2 years. In personally talking with Matt Patricia last year, I got a chance to ask him about the secondary, which he oversees a lot of. He oversees the secondary and the defensive line mostly. But defensive coordinator Matt Patricia was telling me, he said, Malcolm Butler has the most violent hands he's ever seen.
Well, that's interesting.
When I was looking at tape of the Patriots, practice tape and game tape, and he pointed out to me about the hands that Malcolm Butler uses and how violent he plays with them. Very quick. And so the Patriots defensive backs are coached as soon as the ball gets there to put your hand in there. Now, most people are coached that as well, but if you notice the fine details of the game, you see New England, the players are always trying to make a play on the ball. They're coached to make a play on the ball. They're coached to get their hand in there if the player makes them just try to rip it in there and knock the ball out. Another thing that they're coached on is also working as a team in the secondary. Not just, all right, if you're in man coverage, you got to stay with that guy. Or if you're in zone coverage, play your area. But helping out each other. And so Devin McCourty does a lot of that organization in the backfield, seeing it as usually as a high safety. So the Patriots, again, you've heard this time and time again, are very well coached. But it's not just Belichick. Belichick has put McDaniels on offense and Patricia on defense in the right place to help his players and have his players well coached. So Philadelphia, again, with Doug Peterson, is also a well-coached team. So you're going to get a good matchup of 2 very well-coached teams. And the key for New England is to stay consistent on offense. I told you with Philadelphia, you got to get to Brady. You got to take away his weapons and get to Brady. Well, the antithesis for New England is true. Brady's got to get into a rhythm. If Brady gets into a rhythm, it's going to be tough for Philadelphia. And if New England can stop that running game of Philadelphia, which will be one of the best running games they've seen all season, if they can stop that running game and take away the weapons that Foles has, it's going to be, New England can be very successful, and it could be a good day for the Patriots. But at the same time, Alex, this is a very good Super Bowl. These teams are more evenly matched than people would think. And these teams have weapons and match up with their weapons offensively and defensively better than most people will probably say. Well beyond just the basic talking points of Brady and Gronk and Nick Foles and Jay Ajayi. I mean, these teams are really evenly matched.
You talked about violent hands. I want to talk about soft hands, and that's the soft hands of Edelman, because he's a player that you haven't mentioned, and I see here on the roster that he has 9 years of experience, and pretty much if you have 10 years NFL experience, which he looks like he'll be going into his 10th year, then that's pretty much a career for a lot of guys. So do you see that Edelman has still a future with this team because of all those receivers that you mentioned just a few minutes ago, and how has he been this season? Because you really haven't heard a lot of things come Edelman's way.
Well, yeah, because of the injury, I mean, he's been out the whole season, and that his ACL has kept him out for the entirety of the season. But at the same time, you know, Edelman will come back next year. He'll be able to play again just due to his rehab process is going well from what I've heard up in Boston. But the thing with Julian Edelman is that, and the thing with the Patriots is, you know, their whole next man up philosophy. The Patriots acquired this year Dwayne Allen, Kenny Britt, and or Dwayne Allen, Phil Dorsett, and Kenny Britt in the middle of the season as just people to fill. As Chris Hogan has gotten injured, Danny Amendola was out for a couple games. So they've had to fill people, and Gronk was out for a couple games. Gronk was also suspended for a game because of a cheap hit on a Buffalo Bills defender. But at the same time, you know, New England's all about next man up. So when Edelman went injured, I mean, yes, he's a big part of that offense. He's a big cog in the passing game. But, again, Belichick and McDaniels are saying, all right, somebody else is going to have to step up. We can't just sit around, you know, they're telling themselves we can't just sit around and, you know, wish, oh, man, I wish we had Julian. Oh, it stinks that Jules is out. They don't do that. That's not the Patriots. The Patriots are all about next man up, getting the next person in the game. You know, who's going to step up, who's going to be the one to get the drive started, who's going to be the one to get the receiving core started. And, you know, week in, week out, it's somebody different. AFC Championship game, it was Amendola. Divisional round. It was a combination of everybody, especially passing out of the backfield. A little bit of James White, a little bit of Dion Lewis, a little bit of Hogan, a little bit of Amendola. You know, a little bit of everybody. And so the Patriots, it's not like they have one set receiver. Yeah, everybody wants to key in on Gronk, but at the same time, you know, when one goes down, somebody else has to step up, and the same thing happened during preseason. And I guess thankfully for the Patriots, it was an injury that, you know, occurred then. So it was a third game of the preseason against the Lions. And so they had enough time to get somebody else in there and, you know, see if they need to pick up anybody on waivers or pick up anybody in free agency. And, you know, this year in the middle of the year, they picked up Kenny Britt. And Kenny Britt has had, you know, obviously not the standout year, but at the same time, he's caught a couple passes in key situations for the Patriots and has done a good job. Same with Phil Dorsett. He had a huge catch against Jacksonville in the AFC Championship. And then even Dwayne Allen has caught a couple passes at key moments on key drives in some games this season. So the Patriots' mentality of next man up, you know, it applies to everybody. You know, no matter, you know, how low on the depth chart you are or even how high on the depth chart you are. You know, you get injured, I mean, yeah, they got to have somebody else to go in. And so Julian Edelman's no exception. But, you know, again, next season they'll make room for him. Him and Brady practice together in the offseason. You know, they're both from California. They're actually both from Northern California. So they go out together, they meet up, they practice, they run routes. Brady will work on his mechanics. Edelman will work on his throwing, and Brady will just be the guy, or Edelman will be the guy that Brady throws to. I mean, you see it in the documentary Tom vs. Time. So, I mean, these guys, even in the off season, they're practicing together. You know, they don't work or wait until OTAs and wait until minicamp. No, they go in there. You know, they're going out to different places, meeting with different specialists, of throwing specialists, receiving specialists. So, and I'm sure the same thing will happen this year during rehab. Brady and Edelman will get together. Amendola and Edelman will get together. So, you know, again, it's next man up, but at the same time, you know, they're still going to work out together. They'll still find room on the roster for them.
Right. I just want to ask you, David, do you plan on seeing the ESPN documentary 30 for 30 to Bills?
Yes, I actually would love to. Thursday night at 9. Be very interesting to see just what both men have a perspective on, because they both, they come from the same lineage, same coaching lineage, which comes out of Cleveland and Cincinnati, that part of Ohio, or just Ohio, with from Paul Brown. So it'll be very interesting to see Bill Belichick working under Bill Parcells. And it's interesting you brought up the fans of other teams. The Giants specifically, I heard this week before, Giants fans, I wouldn't be surprised if they're rooting for the Patriots. Number one, because they're hate for Philadelphia. But number two, just because Bill Belichick was a big part of the 2 Super Bowls that the Giants won under Parcells. So just to see that lineage of Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick and where they came from, it'll be a very interesting documentary. And, I wouldn't be surprised if Giants fans, kind of put their hatred of, that New York-Boston rivalry aside and say, you know what, we hate Philadelphia more, so I guess I'll root for the Pats and root for Bill Belichick, just because, he comes from that. Bill Belichick still takes pride in his 2 Super Bowl rings that he won with the Giants years ago. So, again, I'm not going to be surprised about that, but at the same time, it'll be very interesting to see how that documentary goes and what each man has to say about the other. But also, it'd be interesting for me, as a Patriot fan, to see what Bill Belichick learned from Bill Parcells, or what Bill Parcells has learned from Bill Belichick. So it'll be a very interesting documentary, and I think it's a very well-timed documentary coming out Super Bowl week.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because a lot of coaches came out of that coaching lineage. Excuse me. Because even right now in the college game, you have Bill Parcells, who got a head coaching job at Cleveland, then hired Saban as his defensive coordinator, and then it's like we know what Saban's done at LSU and in Alabama, and now recently to bring it home, you have Kirby Smart that came out of that Saban coaching tree. So it's very interesting to see the lineage of where these coaches came from, because it seems like all these coaches are focused, all these coaches don't put up with stuff, and they're all out to win championships.
Yeah, and it's interesting, the mentality that Saban has and that Belichick has, they're almost pretty similar. You can even see it in press conferences. Bill is very famous, for his kind of like blank expression of, especially after a couple of years ago in 2014, after the Patriots lost a terrible Monday night game. They got blown out of Kansas City, and all he said was, "We're on to Cincinnati." We're on to Cincinnati. And that mantra stuck in New England, and fans buy into that. We got to bounce back, we got to prepare. It's kind of like, we're New England, we're better than this, and we can get ready even after tough losses. And then Saban kind of has that same mentality of, he just doesn't put up with BS from reporters, from players, from anybody. Assistant coaches even. I mean, just ask Lane Kiffin. So, Nick Saban and Bill Belichick share some of those same mantras as coaches that you got to respect. I mean, at the end of the day, even if you're not a fan of Alabama or not a fan of the Patriots, you still at least got to respect the work that those men have done. Nick Saban and his, all the national championships, and then Bill Belichick with all the Super Bowls. Some people say, oh, well, Saban may cheat at recruiting and Belichick cheats and all this other stuff. I mean, you know what? It's like, you can say all that at the end of the day, but most people that say that either A, don't know what they're talking about, B, are envious, or C, root for a team that just absolutely sucks and will never see a national championship or a Super Bowl in their lifetime, so they're just jealous. But at the same time, you got to see it as, look, these guys win. They win with different players, especially with Saban, and sometimes, they win with the same players, like Belichick, but they consistently win. They consistently keep doing this year in, year out. So you got to give the guys some respect, and at the same time, they're two of the most winningest coaches at their level. That says a lot about where they come from, and that says a lot about who they are as coaches, and it also says a lot about just, what they've learned over the years and how they've developed as coaches, and they said, they're not going to stick with the same thing every year. They're going to change it up, and if they change it up, they're going to do what's best for the team.
Yeah, back to your recent point about what you talked about with people complaining that they do this and do that. It's kind of like with Steve Spurrier. A lot of people don't like how Steve Spurrier runs his mouth, but there's one thing you're not going to call him, and that's a loser, because he's been a winner everywhere that he has gone to, and it seems like that's the same thing with Bill Belichick and Nick Saban. But I have to ask you, David, because this is pretty unprecedented what Belichick has done at the NFL level, because there's a lot of stuff that happens in an offseason, like we just talked about. You have the draft, you have free agency, so there's always a lot of changes that seem to happen with the, especially with the Patriots, because they always seem to take on a new addition to their team. So I just want to know, is for a dynasty that the Patriots have put on the past 15, 16 years, do you think we'll ever see something like this again at the NFL level?
All right, if you look at it, and that's a very good question, Alex. If you look at it right now with like the current players, I honestly don't think so right now. I mean, yes, you could be. Some teams right now that come to mind are going to be, Philadelphia, because of how young a lot of the players are. Philadelphia, I could see something like that. Los Angeles, possibly. I could see something like that, especially since they have such a young coach in Sean McVay, who will most likely stick around for a long time. Those are two teams that pop out. You look at some of the bigger veteran quarterbacks are getting older, like Ben Roethlisberger in Pittsburgh. He's pretty close to it. Matt Ryan's kind of in the middle of his career, so I don't know if anything happens, with the Falcons, it'll be kind of, I think, towards the latter part of Matt Ryan's career. But in terms of what the Patriots done, I don't know if we'll ever see it again. Maybe possibly not even in my lifetime, maybe in, my future kids' lifetime possibly. But what Brady and Belichick have done is, very, very unique and rare. You saw it, and it's, only happens once or twice, only once or twice in a sport. The Yankees did it with Derek Jeter. The Bulls did it with Michael Jordan. You can argue at times LeBron, but LeBron played on two separate teams and won and lost finals with both teams, so it's kind of hard to argue the LeBron factor in this. Wayne Gretzky, yes and no, he was with multiple teams, but at the same time, eventually it's going to end. Eventually Brady's going to retire. Eventually Belichick's not going to be coaching anymore. So when that'll happen, I don't know. But I'll tell you this, and this is a very big coincidence for New England that's happening this week with the Super Bowl. All right, let's jump back to 2001. All right, Brady's first Super Bowl, Belichick's first Super Bowl with New England.
Okay.
All right, 2001, Patriots beat the Rams, an NFC West team. 2 years later, in 2003, they go to the Super Bowl in Houston, play Carolina. They win, an NFC South team. The following year, they played the Eagles. All right, they played the Eagles and win. So 3 Super Bowl wins in 4 years. All right, let's jump ahead. 2014, they win the Super Bowl against an NFC West team, the Seahawks.
Mm-hmm.
2 years later, in Houston, they play an NFC South team, the Falcons, and beat the Falcons in the Super Bowl. Then the following year, this year, they play the Eagles again. The coincidence is astronomically crazy. And in both years that they played the Eagles beat the Falcons in the divisional round and beat the Vikings in the conference championship. Like, the irony and the similarities are insane. So if history repeats itself, which as a history teacher, I don't believe the same, but if history repeats itself, it would happen this year. Whether history's on the Patriots side or not, I don't know. But again, it's not necessarily history repeating itself. It's different people making the same mistakes some idiot before them made. So, with that said, the coincidence and the irony is there this year for the Patriots to have, again, 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. Whether it happens or not is another question, and only time will tell on Sunday.
Do you feel like Josh McDaniels is going to be a good fit as a head coach again with Indianapolis? Because obviously with his career, it seemed like the drafting of Tim Tebow just pretty much burned his career, and but it seemed like kind of like with Lane Kiffin being the OC at Alabama, that Josh McDaniels has rehabbed his image and now a franchise like Indianapolis wants him to be their head coach. Do you feel like he's learned his lessons and is going to be a better head coach because of it?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know, how great Indy will be in the upcoming season. It'll be interesting just because with the AFC South, obviously Jacksonville won it for the first time in over a decade. So you got to contend with the Jaguars. Houston will be all right. Depends on how Deshaun Watson rehabs. If he can come back, Houston should be a good contender. And then Tennessee's made the playoffs as well. So the AFC South is going to be a huge contention this year, and it's interesting. The Colts being the worst team in the AFC South. But McDaniels will fit in well. It'll be interesting to see if Andrew Luck will come back, especially from being injured so much, and especially with his neck problems that he's gone through in the past couple of years. But if you think about it, Jacoby Brissett, the quarterback they went with this year, he played in New England, so Josh McDaniels has a good relationship with him. They have great weapons in T.Y. Hilton, especially on offense. Their defense is going to need a little bit of work. You can't rely on a, mismatched secondary. So Josh McDaniels will have, he'll have a lot of pieces he needs to put together. He'll have a big chore in front of him. But I think if you give him time, give him a little bit more time than he had in Denver, I think he will be a pretty decent coach. Will he turn it around quickly like Belichick? And have the, Patriots humming like Belichick did within the first couple of years? Probably not, but I think within 2 to 3 years he can make the Colts decent contenders and if not win the AFC South again. So do I think he'll be a good fit in Indy? Yes. Does he have the pieces to do so? Yes, and I think the second time around will be a lot better than it was in Denver with Josh McDaniels.
Well, there you go. I just have a fan question to I'll wrap this whole thing up, but
yeah, sure.
I just want you to put on your fan hat and take off your analyst hat right now, David. And I just want to know from a fan, because obviously in American culture that the Super Bowl is now a central thing and a central event that people gather around the TV and watch. You have parties and whatnot, but you usually don't think it's going to be your team in the Super Bowl, that it's always someone else's team. So you're always this neutral spectator to this game. And but it's like, for you being a Patriots fan, this is another game for you. Sunday is game day, and I just want to know from a fan, does it feel like another game, or does it feel like you're gonna win, like that it's a championship type game?
It does. To me, it is. Yes, this is one more game. We get one more chance to win, one more chance to play, one more chance to prove ourselves as a team. At least is, I guess the mantra in New England. The fans have all rallied around the cry of "We're not done. We're not done yet." And as a Patriots fan, yeah, a lot of people say, "Oh, well, you guys were there all the time." Well, I mean, yeah, it's true. We do go to a lot of Super Bowls. We have been to a lot of Super Bowls. As a Patriots fan, I've been very blessed. We've been very fortunate to have been so successful over the past, 15, 16, 17 years. But at the same time, we don't take it for granted, because we know one day we're not going to be there. Patriots fans have, for years, in my opinion, if the Patriots don't make it to at least the AFC Championship game, it was a bad season. It's kind of like as an Alabama fan, if Alabama says, if they don't make it to the playoffs, it's a bad season. It's kind of like that's how we are. If we don't make it to the AFC Championship game, it's been a bad season. And as a Patriots fan, I was like, I get nervous for these games. Definitely. It's not, we got this in the bag. I never thought that. I didn't think that last year. I didn't think that with Seattle. I don't think that going into Sunday. Personally, I'm going into this game, I'm worried. Are we going to be able to handle the rushing game and the passing game combination of Philadelphia? Is their defense going to be able to shut us down? Because they've done it to other teams. They murdered Minnesota. They did a really good job shutting down Minnesota. So at the same time, I go in there thinking, I'm worried, but I'm also confident. Because at the end of the day, we have Gronkowski, we have Big Gronk, but we also have Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. At the end of the day, no matter what, we have Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. And so after last year's Super Bowl, Alex, I will say anything can happen. and I always stay confident. I found myself frustrated against Jacksonville when we were down 10 points in the fourth quarter. I had forgotten that we were down 16 points in the fourth quarter last year against Atlanta in the Super Bowl. So even then, I still got to keep telling myself, we have Brady and Belichick. Brady and Belichick. And the best part is these guys, you truly believe it because you see it on the sideline, you see it in games. They don't freak out. Fans freak out. And I heard a quote once from Richard Jefferson, an NBA guy who plays for the Cavs, and he said, plays for the Warriors, and he said it best. He said, only fans put expectations on you.
Yeah.
So these guys when they get in the sideline, when they go in the locker room, they get in their zone and they get in their head that this is, just they're focused on one thing, and it's doing well. And the Patriots have done a great job of that. They've been down in games and come back. And so even in the lowest of times during games, when you say, we're down 28-3 in the Super Bowl, the Patriots don't give up. And as fans, we emotionally give up. Mark Wahlberg walked out of the Super Bowl last year.
Wow.
Turned it
off.
It's like fans give up, but the players don't. And the best part about it is Brady and Belichick never give up. And I heard someone said, Ray Lewis used to say, until it's 0-0 on that clock, you can never count Tom Brady out. He says until it's 0-0 on that clock, Tom Brady will have in his mind that he can win that game. And the man does. And he plays like it, too. He performs like it, and he plays like it. And Belichick, Matt Patricia, and Josh McDaniels coach like it. They coach like they were never out. And if you think about it this way, in the Super Bowl, the Patriots never led. They never led for any time until the final play. They led it, and the only time they led it was when it was over. And they have that mentality. We just got to keep working. We got to keep doing our job, keep chopping away, and we got to keep working and grinding. All right? Brady says sometimes on the sideline, when they have him mic'd up, he says two things: laser focus, and he says it's going to be a good drive. They don't see it as down 25 points. They see it as we got to do well on this drive. We got to do well on this play. They break it down and make it simplistic for themselves in order for them to succeed in the moment. And as a fan, knowing that that's my team's quarterback and Belichick's my team's coach, and that's the attitude they have, I'm confident going into Sunday. Am I worried? Yeah, because I'm a human and because I'm a fan. But am I confident? Heck yeah, because my team's got Brady. On the back of my jersey, it says Brady, and it has the number 12. Knowing my team's coach is Bill Belichick, that's all the confidence I need. I got the killer bees, Belichick and Brady, and that's all I need.
One of the things I'm kind of curious about, because I've watched sporting events with you, David, and I just have to ask. I know the answer to this, but are you going to a Super Bowl party, or are you just watching it in your man cave?
Now here's the interesting thing. The two Super Bowls we lost to the Giants. One, I went to a church function and watched it because it was pretty split, half Giants, half Patriots fans, so I felt comfortable. Watched it, we lost in the desert. David Tyree, I don't want to talk about it again. The second one, I watched all at home. You remember this, when we lived together, I locked myself in the room upstairs, and I watched the Super Bowl, and then we lost. Now, flash forward to 2014. I was teaching a girl, and I went to her parents' house. They were big Patriots fans. She taught at the local high school, so I knew her from teacher meetings. So she's kind of like a colleague, and I also taught her daughter. So I went over there for the first half. At halftime, my wife and I, we left. We went back to our house, watched the second half. It was great. Last year's Super Bowl, you know this, I went down to my parents' house, watched the game first half. It was atrocious. I didn't even talk to my wife in the car on the way home. And she
Wow.
Said, my wife, Sarah, and she
I didn't even know that.
A lot. So she's an absolutely amazing woman who has dealt with me through, the Georgia National Championship, the Rose Bowl, a lot of big sporting events in our marriage, 2 going now on 3 Super Bowls since we've been married. And so she just said in the car.
That's some rough stuff.
She just looked at me and she said something like, "Do you want to listen to it on the?" And I just looked at her and I go, "No." And I felt bad because I was frustrated with the game, and I said, "You know what? I'm sorry." And I told her, I was like, "You know what, Sarah? I'm sorry. I shouldn't. I'm not trying to take it on you. I'm just really, ticked off about this game." She's like, "Oh yeah, I can tell." Like, she's smart. She knows football. So she's like, "Oh yeah, I can tell." So I didn't say anything on the way home. It's about a 30-minute drive from my parents' house to my house up north of where they live. And so last year's Super Bowl, we get home and we get in the house and she says, you know what, I'm just going to go upstairs. I'll just watch what I want to watch. You can have the TV downstairs. I was like, thanks, I appreciate it. It was like, I told her, I was like, I just hope we make it competitive. I said, that's it. And she's like, I'm just going to go upstairs, hope for the best. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best. And so slowly but surely during last year's Super Bowl, she would hear me, oh my gosh, you got it. Oh my gosh. Oh. And she would come down and she'd be like, what happened? She come out of the bedroom, she'd say, what happened? I tell her, I was like, all right, 28-20. It could be us. Then I kind of like, we tied it. And then we went into overtime. I was like, we're going overtime. And at overtime, she came down and watched the end of it with me. And she's like, and I told her, I said, once we got the coin toss, I said, all right, we can do this. We can do this. And I explained how NFL overtime works. She's big into college. And so I've slowly gotten her into the NFL over the years. So I explained to her how NFL overtime works. And so when we won, we celebrated. All right, so the past 2 Super Bowls, I've gone to someone's house and then come home at halftime. So I don't know what I'm doing this year. I still don't know. But for Super Bowls as a Patriots fan, I told my wife this before we got married. I like watching it by myself. I like watching it not around people because I hate going to parties as a Patriots fan and having people say, "You guys cheat! Oh my gosh, the Patriots."
So you just hate being around the trolls.
Pretty. Yeah, I hate hearing that because if it doesn't go well, I don't want to have people yelling at me because I'm going to shoot my mouth off and I don't want to have to say something stupid. And then if it goes well for us, I don't want people saying, "Oh, and I don't want to hear it from people saying, "Oh, you guys win all the time" and stuff like that. So I like to kind of be by myself or with family or with fellow Patriot fans where I know only Patriot fans will be there. So with that said, I'm still kind of undecided where I'll go, but most likely I may just stay at home for that evening. Just stay at home and watch it all at home. So, and I did that for the AFC title game. I stayed at home and watched it all at home, and I was fine. And it was funny. My wife sat down there with me in the living room and watched it. And she was working on stuff for work, but she would kind of chime in and kind of pay attention to different parts. And she's a big Gronk fan. She loves Gronk. And so I thought, hey, your boy got a catch. And she's like, yeah, that's my boy. But at the same time, it's kind of funny how she loves Gronk. But so she keeps up with it. She knows who the players are. So we kind of go back and forth. And it's funny, when it got close to the AFC Championship game, she looked at me. She's like, yeah, if they'd have lost, I didn't know how you were going to take that. And especially after Georgia lost the national championship this year, she's kind of hesitant because if the Patriots lose the Super Bowl and Georgia loses the national championship in the same year, I don't know how my emotions will be so dramatic. I don't know where my emotions will be. So I kind of may want to just stay at home just in case if it goes south for the Pats, just so I can keep it all in the house and not dramatically express that in front of other people. So.
And you forgot about a crucial detail in your story about last year's Super Bowl, because after that Patriots win here in the ATL, the sky literally falled out.
Yeah.
And you could tell it the next day, but I don't really want to remiss on memories from last year's Super Bowl, but yeah, David, if you could do us a favor, I think this would be fun. Sunday, whatever your plans are, if you could tweet at Fan's Favorite Fan and just tell us what you're doing, I think that would be pretty cool.
Okay. Yeah, I was about to say, man, just shoot me a text on Sunday and I'll do it, definitely.
Okay, yeah, I'll send you a reminder even though we're still on the air, but yeah, that would be fun to see what you're doing, because out of everybody, I think there's a lot of casual fans out there, but you're usually, when you invest into a team, you're 100% in, no matter what. So, yeah, so that'd be fun. So, but yeah, thanks, Dave, for coming on the show today. If people want to get in touch with you and talk to you more about this conversation, hopefully they won't troll you, because we know what where the Patriots stand with a lot of NFL fans. But
they hate us because they ain't us.
Well, where's the best way to get in contact with you?
Yeah, Twitter. Twitter's pretty good. Twitter, Instagram. Twitter is going to be at the Mr. Berger, TheMrBerger, and then Instagram it's just Coach D Berger. So that's it. Twitter is the Mr. Berger, and then Instagram is Coach D Berger. So that's where you can find me.
All right. Thanks, Dave, for coming on the show today.
Hey, Alex, not a problem. Anytime, man. I love talking college, but also at the same time, being a Pats fan, I keep up with the NFL, so I like talking NFL with you as well.
Yeah, we just wanted a perspective from a Patriots fan, so.
I appreciate it. You don't hear that a lot in Atlanta. We want to hear from your perspective. You don't hear that in Atlanta, so I appreciate it.
No problem.
Again, we just want to thank David Berger for joining the show today, breaking down Super Bowl coverage. He made some really interesting points, and he told us about a lot of Eagles and Patriots players I don't think a lot of mainstream NFL fans know about. So always enjoy hearing what he has to say. Either it's about college or this time it was about the Super Bowl. But just to let you know, if there's a little confusion or anything like that, we are a podcast that is part of favoritefan.com. We are all about the fan experience. And speaking of the fan experience is also about giving feedback. And we would love to get your feedback on the show. Tell us what you think. Or if you just want to talk about the Super Bowl and just want to be a part of the conversation, the best way to do that is in the comment section. Or if you don't really feel comfortable talking to us in the comment section, be sure to tweet at me. I'm Alexander71004. I know it's a long Twitter handle. Someday I'm going to get it changed. I don't know when, but someday. So yeah, tweet at me if you have any questions or you want to talk about stuff, or if you think you have a really cool tweet that's going to go along with our podcast. Because if I find really cool tweets, I'm going to read them on air. I haven't done that yet. I promise that, but that day is coming soon. So those are some of the ways you can interact with the fan show. We definitely want your interaction and your feedback. We appreciate all our listeners that have listened to us since we started out on SoundCloud. Also, too, we're loving the new YouTube viewers, because this podcast is on SoundCloud. It's also on YouTube, on Fans Favorite Fan Show on YouTube. So if you don't know about that, be sure to check that out. Be sure to check out fansfavoritefan.com. Got some. Obviously, we'll be covering the Super Bowl. We'll be putting out articles about the Super Bowl, but also too, since the NBA season is upon us, we also have a lot of articles out right now about the NBA. So if you're interested in that, be sure to check out fansfavoritefan.com. Thank you guys for listening. You guys are awesome, and we will hear from you guys in the next podcast.